Thanks for joining us for Khari Free at Last on Bounce23 TV. I'm Khari Enaharo. John Conyers, the dean of the Congressional Black Caucus, said he will reintroduce legislation calling for reparations for African Americans in the 113th Congress. The 8-page legislation, co-sponsored by Congressman Bobby Rush of Chicago, pointed out that 4 million Africans and their descendants were enslaved in the United States from 1619 to 1865. And the U.S. government sanctioned slavery from 1789 through 1865. Joining me is TalkTainmentRadio.com host Earth Jallow, Reverend John Coates, and Donella Martin-Braddix. All right, Reverend Coates, it looks like to me Representative Conyers from Detroit,
that's his name.
84 years old, somewhere around there,
yes,
is at it again. He is reintroducing reparations. First of all, what is reparations and why is he constantly trying to push it through?
Well, reparations means restoration, and we need to be restored from everything that has been taken from us, having been kidnapped from the shores of Africa, packed in the halls of slave ships, giving free labor on our back in the industries of cotton, tobacco, rice, what have you, that build America and Europe to its strength.
But white America is going to say no. Listen, wait a minute. They're going to say no. We've given you civil rights. We've given you fair housing. We've given you health care. We've given you education. What more do you want?
White America has only put a Band-Aid on the dysfunction that it helped to create through the whole process of slavery and through a history of injustice that has taken place within our country. White America has also said yes before. It wasn't to African Americans, but they said yes to the Japanese Americans.
Now, wait a minute. That's an old argument. Aren't we past this slavery thing, Donella? Aren't we now in the age of social media and the wonderfulness of all this diversity? Why do you want to bring up this reparations argument?
Well, because it's absolutely not fair. When we look at the whole reparations argument, what they focus on is race instead of racism. Okay? And the bottom line is we have a history of white supremacy, which has created a stratified society of which black people remain on the bottom. And as long as black people remain on the bottom, we absolutely cannot give up the fight for reparations.
How could you remain on the bottom when the president of the United States is black, when you've got senators who are black, you've got religious leaders who are black, you've got major heads of major corporations who are black? How is that on the bottom?
Well, you know what? Statistics speak for themselves. Absolutely. You can't deny the numbers. You can't deny the numbers.
What are the numbers?
The numbers are that, first of all, we know that over 70% of black children are born into poverty. That is this generation, and it's getting worse for next generations after that. And we're not attacking the problem. White America does not want to address the racist policies, including the black codes, the Jim Crow laws, and not to mention the domestic terrorism of the KKK, which has obliterated black prosperity, which was beginning after slavery.
Reverend Coates, Earth Jallow, when you say white America does not want to address the issue, white America will say we've spent trillions to address the issue. What do you think all this legislation was? The war on poverty was. We have addressed the issue. It's not our fault that you now have an open playing field and you can't take advantage of it.
Well, it was the America's fault when they discriminated against the housing with the FHA through 1930 through 1960. We all know that we were ineligible for, legitimate mortgages. We also know that we have land that was stolen from us that was never, we were never compensated for. According to the Associated Press, who did a 3-part series on the land that was stolen from African Americans during, after slavery.
You talking about farmland?
Yes, farmland and other lands too. So they found over 400 victims, 24,000 acres of land, which is now valued today at tens of millions of dollars. Some of the land in Virginia was turned into a training facility, what do you call that? A country club, and then you have oil refineries in Mississippi.
Khari, history rewards our research and tells us quite plainly that after Sherman, General Tecumseh Sherman, from right here in Ohio, Lancaster area, had his march to the sea.
Look, we have already paid you. White America is going to say, wait a minute, white America is going to say, we have already paid you reparations.
not pay
What
because
more
what
do you
happened,
want?
he cut a deal with the Field Order 50.
Who cut a deal?
To Custer Sherman on behalf of the President of the United States. That's the 40 acres and a mule deal. And as soon as Abraham Lincoln was assassinated and Andrew Johnson became President of the United States, he reversed that deal.
So you're going to hold them accountable as to why you haven't made progress?
For reneging on their contract.
What did they renege on?
They reneged on their contract for 40 acres in the Mews. We did not receive the land that was contracted to us.
And that was stolen from us in the first
work
place.
animals.
And so I'm supposed to be responsible because you were not good businessmen. Stay right there. 250 years of slavery, 90 years of Jim Crow. Up next on Khari, Free at Last. Welcome back to Khari Free at Last on Bounce23 TV. I'm Khari Enaharo. Ta-Nehisi Coates, in an Atlantic Monthly article, says that 250 years of slavery, 90 years of Jim Crow, 60 years of separate but unequal, 35 years of racist housing, education, employment, and economic policies have wrecked our nation and black people. Is it time for compensation or reparations? Is he correct or dead wrong? Joining me is TalkTainmentRadio.com host Earth Jallow, the Reverend John Coates, and Donella Martin-Braddix. All right, Brother Coates, your namesake, except for the first name.
That's my cousin. That's my cousin, and
your
he made a very powerful argument.
But your 50th cousin?
Well, no, but we are related. All the Coates are, yes.
Right. But anyway, he did in the Atlantic Monthly in the May edition, powerful article, 40-some pages or more maybe, but I read it all the way through, and he says that all of this should allow us to have compensation. But what about what we've gotten? What about the argument of all the trillions of dollars that have been spent already? Isn't that enough?
No, because you cause damage, and then you...
but you've already been compensated.
You don't even appropriately, adequately fix the damage, but yet private corporations get wealthy on the back of free labor in this country and throughout the Caribbean.
But wait a minute, you've been restored? You've got
Who's been restored?
Wait a minute.
What's the evidence of restoration?
All right,
there's no restoration.
Here's the evidence. 14th Amendment, 13th Amendment, Bill of Rights, voting,
Jim Crow,
all of
lynching,
unfair housing.
All of that's been counted.
No,
we're
still in unfair housing.
Legal lynching is illegal. Jim Crow is illegal. Separate but unequal.
James Byrd was just lynched in what, 99?
All of that's been rectified.
Yeah, but continues to happen.
Wait, hold on. You didn't catch that word.
Rectified.
All that's been rectified, Earth Jallow. So why y'all still harping?
Because it hasn't been rectified.
It has.
We have not gotten land. We are still in unfair housing practices. We just saw this housing market go kaput because of the arm, because of unfair housing lending practices.
Wait a minute.
Come on.
Latinos come here. Somalis come here. Nigerians, everybody comes here and makes out except African Americans.
Well, you know,
because African Americans keep using this as an excuse for not moving forward.
Well, Mr. Coates talks about that in the same article. He gives us a modern-day scenario of the practices.
Which Coates? Not him.
No, Ta-Nehisi Coates. Where he describes last year, every year in New York City, there's standardized testing for the most elite public high schools. And the Asians dominate the testing, and they dominate getting entrance into those high schools, where, of course, who's on the bottom? The blacks.
Why?
This is what...
Whoa, why?
Okay,
discrimination in
because
education.
the question becomes...
On tests, why?
What is the biggest problem? Is it black culture or is it white supremacy? And can reparations fix or change black culture, and can it make up for that?
Who stops you from scoring high on a test?
The bottom line is this: if we look at that today, Khari, we have to
You're not answering my question. Who stops your children from scoring equal or higher than Asians and whites on tests?
We have to look at all across the world when you see...
you notice she still ain't answering the question.
No. When you see oppressed societies, those societies are ridden with crime, they're ridden with undereducation, they're ridden with all of the poisons and ills that come from white supremacy.
Who stops you from scoring? Who stops your children from scoring equal or better than Asians on tests?
You know, it depends on your environment. And if you are hungry, If you can't have any food in the mornings because of economic disenfranchisement, then yes, you're gonna score lower.
You see what the problem
It's
is?
educational discrimination.
I understand that.
Hold on for a minute.
Educational discrimination.
The problem is we are in excuse-laden social
We
order.
bear,
and so
we
we're not
do bear some of the responsibility for our
Absolutely,
own
Mr. Coates.
uplift, but as a part of that, we ought to discuss what form should reparations take. Now, the Japanese Americans
Why do you need reparations?
Because we're due
because we don't score well on
reparations.
tests.
That's
Somalis don't get reparations.
Well,
Somalis
were never
wait a minute now.
reparations, and Somalis were not, Nigerians and Somalis were not slaves in this country.
And in 1999, the African World Reparations called forth for a debt for the European nations to be paid of $777 trillion that was owed to the continent of Africa.
Based on what research?
Based on what research?
Yes.
This is common knowledge. This is in the Atlantic Star, okay, the same article with Ta-Nehisi Coates talks about this.
Monthly.
And Atlantic Monthly.
That's a
okay.
singing
in
group.
June.
Atlantic Star.
All right, Atlantic Star, right? I love music. Okay.
Freakazoid.
Oh, no, that's Midnight
Oh,
Star.
sorry.
You
Same
messed up.
article. So Africa's not ignoring the need for reparations. Antigua's not ignoring the need for reparations. Barbados is not ignoring the need for reparations. Neither is Jamaica. All of these countries who are ridden with the same issues that you see in our black communities are saying, hey, wait a minute, this is not a mistake that our people are on the bottom.
Didn't Booker T. Washington so eloquently say, pull yourselves up by your bootstraps? Didn't Marcus Garvey say, we can have some of this earth? Up, you mighty people. You can accomplish what you will.
Marcus Garvey, who was a reparations activist, who did support reparations.
He never said anything about reparations.
So thank you for invoking his presence, because he was a strong supporter of reparations.
Give me text and verse where he said
I support reparations. Before he died.
Right before, right?
I read that.
All right, now this movement, is this another, everybody's coming up with, is it the hottest thing now that we all want to get on board, that we want to support reparations? Earth, what does reparations really mean to you?
Reparations to me means that the United States acknowledges its wrongdoing through slavery and that it's ready to atone
Bill
and
Clinton
publicly.
apologized.
No,
That's two parts.
Yeah,
That's two parts.
Wait a minute,
The United States, Bill Clinton, as
Didn't
well
Billy
as President,
Clinton apologize?
and so did President Obama.
Yep.
All right.
Okay? In their office of the presidency in the executive branch. But our nation, the United States Congress, has never apologized for this nation's participation in slavery, has never done so.
Well, what does an apology mean anyway?
Well, apology is at least the first step, and then you back up the apology with some substance, okay?
Right.
Now, I don't believe that we should do what we did with the Japanese and give them $20,000 apiece to each descendant of a slave, because I realize that a fool and his money will soon part. So that money can come in programs that are substantive for our people.
And what we and also what we have.
So in essence, you want to give black folks a free ride.
No,
Not
I'm going to give
a
just right.
A correction of the policies that have put black people in this position today. Once again, we need to not focus on race, because then the question remains also, well, who is black?
Here we go again, blaming the white man
who was Japanese?
for our problems.
No, Japanese blamed the white man for their problems. Franklin Roosevelt had them interned during the Second World War, had them thrown in jail.
And they lost the right to have income.
And the problem was they were second and third generations Japanese. And it wasn't until the Carter administration where they began to examine the issue, and then Reagan dispersed the money. So we are due for those that were interned for 4 years, 200 years of slavery compared to 4 years.
What do you want the Congress to do? Tell me what you want to do.
Well, first, the United States
Stay right
Congress.
there. I'll give you a chance. I was going to say something else. Restamping your ghetto passes. Up next on Khari, free at last. Welcome back to Khari, free at last on Bounce23 TV. I'm Khari Enaharo. After 5.5 years of the Obama presidency, during which the problems of black America were ignored, in some cases made worse, some of black Obama apologists feel the need to get their ghetto passes restamped. Are they wrapping themselves in the reparations as a way of asserting allegiance to African Americans now? Joining me is TalkTainmentRadio.com host Earth Jallow, the Reverend John Coates, and Donella Martin-Braddix. Did you notice I said the Reverend John? It almost came out like a preacher, didn't it?
Yes, you did.
Had
You're a preacher. You're a preacher.
Preachertorial quality.
Yes.
Have mercy. Anyway, now you've got some of these black activists who've been silent all of this time. Now the president's got about 2 years, about a year and a half left. Now all of a sudden they want to reassert and get a ghetto pass, if we want to call it, by saying, ain't I black enough for you and all. Now they want to push for something that they know ain't going nowhere in a year and a half.
It can go someplace. And first thing that the president should do, Mr. President, please get Congressman Conyers, bring him to the Rose Garden, bring him to the red room, the blue room, the gold room, some room, the Oval Office, and say that I support this piece of legislation.
He's not gonna do it.
Because it's the right thing for the American people. But I'm glad, I'm happy because the old dudes like John Conyers, 84 years old, and Harry Belafonte in his 80s. It takes the old people to say, and Charlie Rango, it takes the who's facing a difficult race right now. For them to say that we have nothing to lose.
Right.
So at least what we can do is tell the truth and push for justice for our people.
Will Obama come out and say, yes, it's time for reparations for African Americans? Will he do it before 2016?
I don't know if Obama's going to come out and say it, but the point is that it needs to be said. It's only right. It's only just.
That's not the question.
And
will Obama come out and say it?
I don't think Obama's going to come out and say it because Obama has said for the longest that he is the people's president. Okay, he's not the black president. He's not the black king.
Ain't that the people?
You know why he won't do it? You know why he won't do it, Khari? He won't do it because he knows the story of President Aristide of Haiti. Okay, Haiti, who had freed its slaves. Haiti, who became independent
when they went down there and put a gun in his face and said, "You gonna leave or else."
That's right. And the French government raped Haiti from money for decades after decades after decades.
And they're still in debt.
And then Aristide, when he was president, he told the French government, "We want our money back."
Yeah,
and as he proclaimed that he wanted his money back, there were French warships in the harbor, and then he was overthrown. He knows that history.
Earth Jallow, will President Obama, before he leaves office in 2016, will he, actually 2017, will he come out and say black Americans, African Americans must have reparations?
Absolutely not. He was asked a question when he first was running if he would benefit, from affirmative action, and he said no. So therefore, that's his stance right there. He has a generation of privilege, of wealth and privilege that the most of us don't have, and we will never have. So Sasha and Malia, right? They have privilege that my children will not have. Most white children would not have. So of course he's looking at affirmative action like he doesn't need that. So why would he think the rest
reparations
of us
and
would
affirmative
need it?
actions are apples and oranges.
Totally
Affirmative action is reverse discrimination.
Right,
reparations is restore back to what has been taken from me.
If you don't need one, if you're looking at it like you don't need one, then you don't need the other as well. I don't think he's going to come out and say that we need reparations because I feel like
Well, the thing about it is there's no system of what reparations really means. Nobody knows what reparations really means. It brings up a lot of questions that America is not prepared to answer. For example, who is really black? Can someone who claims to have 10% black blood, but who looks, their phenotype is Caucasian, can they get reparations? Okay, so we've got a lot of questions.
They get gambling casinos.
Okay, we've got to ask these
They get gambling casinos because they claim to be American Indians.
So the thing about it is, not only do we deserve reparations, but what does reparations mean? Can reparations take away, the detrimental influences that have dominated our culture?
The polls are showing that the majority of African Americans support reparations. But obviously, it's the opposite way on opposite poles.
20 years ago, African Americans didn't even know what reparations
that is correct.
Okay.
Until Johnny Cochran and people like that
and Willie Gary. And but we look to the governments of the Caribbean, who have organized themselves and who have done extensive research as to how much is owed, who's due the money. We look to their leadership because they have come out and have taken a strong stand.
But the thing about it is America's situation is completely different from those of the Caribbean nations and from those in Africa. Because the thing about it is our population was only about, what, 12% African American or African at that time, where those nations were over 90% black. So we've got a whole different outlook. We've got to do our own research. We've got to be our own heroes in this reparations
They were kidnapped from Africa. They were stuck in slave ships. And they worked the sugarcane fields and the cotton fields and everything else.
But it is a different situation. The black American situation is completely different from those of the Caribbean. If, as a matter of fact, as a black person here, what you're considered black in America, if I go over to Guyana, I'm not even considered black. I'm considered clear. So the question is not only,
that
you know,
what
correct. That is correct. That is correct. You can go into South American nations right now, and people who are darker than you are listed on their birth certificates as Caucasian. So they got to be what is black.
Jallow, do you see the confusion?
Absolutely.
Do you see the confusion?
And we need to get one definition.
Is Donella confused? She seems to me to be confused.
No, she's not. She's not confused. In all truth, she's not confused.
Wait a minute.
This is the reality.
The African American experience, the Africans' experience in America is much worse than even that of our brothers and sisters in the Caribbean.
Completely unique.
She says that what you have told her is that slave ship dropped off folks in Brazil.
Yep.
Yes.
It dropped them off in the Caribbean.
That is true.
And it dropped them off in Haiti.
That is true.
But I still think that we're very confused
because racial identity, because of the laws.
The mentality of the master in America was more demonic than what existed throughout America.
Hold on, stay right there. The lasting effects of slavery and discrimination. Up next on Khari, Free at Last. Welcome back to Khari, Free at Last on Bounce23 TV. I'm Khari Enaharo. The Commission to Study Reparation Proposals said that they would study the lasting derogatory effects of slavery and discrimination and recommend appropriate remedies. Is there a lasting effect of slavery? Joining me is TalkTainmentRadio.com host, the Reverend John Coates, Donella Martin-Braddix, and Jallow. Is there a lasting effect of slavery?
Absolutely. Donella was just talking about the different, Caribbean nations, but, I've traveled extensively, and when I see the confusion...
creating confusion.
But when I see the confusion...
pitting light against dark.
Well, you know what?
Heavy,
But that has happened because over in Dominican Republic, the lighter you are, the more accepted you are. You all would not... would be treated so bad.
So in Haiti, would she be called black?
She would be black, but she would be of a different class.
Which would give her more advantage.
More privilege, more absolutely. And so that's the confusion that I think she's referring to across the board, where, different people have come in. Even we have it even in the United States right here with the family.
Wait a minute. What is the lasting effect of slavery?
Total confusion.
Wait a minute, Jallow. What is the lasting effect?
For me, it's total confusion about who we are, what we stand for, and what we belong. Where do we actually belong?
On the ground, what is it?
On the ground, the lasting effects of slavery is our number of single-parent homes that we have. The lasting effects of slavery is our lack of literacy. The lasting effect of slavery is in our infant mortality rate. The lasting effect of slavery is in the mentality that you see amongst our people right now. Because it was
how dare you blame that?
Absolutely.
Because certain things were bred
into our culture.
Hold on. For example,
for destruction. For instance, the black man on the plantation was used as a buck, not as a father. He wasn't trained to be a father by the master. He was trained to be a buck, to impregnate the woman.
And we don't look at it today.
He's a serial.
Right, and we don't look at that today in the effects that it has and what it has caused by him being a breeder and all these absent fathers. We don't look at these things that are ingrained in us.
You're talking about one of the effects is trauma?
It's trauma. We have gone through trauma. We have not got counseling from this trauma, and we need to finally address this trauma.
That was hundreds. That was over 100.
That means done in repetition for 400 years, 3 300 years, and then you expect a break to take place, and then you put a system in place that perpetuates it.
And wonder why we can't
Right.
read.
The bottom line is that as long as you have a society today where a black man or a black child walking down the street is considered a menace, and they can be legally killed and their murderers can get off scot-free in this nation that is supposed to be free and just, as long as you have that situation, you don't have equality, and you need to fight for justice.
What is the lasting effect on white America of slavery, in your opinion?
Because
the lasting effect
of white America is that white America was brought up to economic strength because it was an agricultural society, a agrarian society. It grew to strength, and then it became an industrial society.
Has white America's views of black people changed? Or is it about the same that it was over 100, 200 years ago?
I think what's different is that the language has changed. Now, I believe that we are all politically correct now in the way that we talk about each other, but
so
we
they're
don't
speaking
know.
in code,
We don't know what's happening behind closed doors.
Right, we have to keep in mind that racism is a product of legislation. Like when you had, at first in the fight for the colonies, the whites, the British, they had aligned with the black natives who were there. And then what happened, they were against the Spanish. Then what happened is, suddenly white people came together and black people were on the bottom.
The number one lasting effect is economics. Would you agree, or is it
Absolutely.
psychological?
It certainly
Is it economics or
and
psychological?
not only is that the lasting effect in America, that's the lasting effect of slavery elsewhere and colonialism around the world as well.
Around the world.
Is it extreme
economics.
poverty? Is it
Exactly.
extreme
And
disenfranchisement?
we see it all
all
around the world
we see it
with
all
conquered people.
over the world.
You're
wherever
saying
you're at.
black people all over the world are
All over the world.
on the economic and
Yes.
social bottom?
And there's a
question.
reason for it's not coincidence.
That's a lasting effect of slavery.
It's by design.
Wow. Thanks to TalkTainmentRadio.com host Earth Jallow, Donella Martin-Braddix, and the Reverend John Coates. And thank you for watching Khari, free at last on Bounce23 TV.